This video is going to teach you what country is the next China and why. I've purchased from half of the major manufacturing countries all over the world, mostly in Asia. And those that I haven't purchased from, I've actually been to. What does it mean to be the next China? It means to be a powerful, rich country that makes stuff. A lot of people think that the future of manufacturing, the future of making stuff is all automation and machines. Like, we're gonna be in the United States, we're gonna flip some sort of switch, we're gonna bring in some robots, and we'll make everything we need. Obviously, it hasn't happened yet. In my opinion, based on what I've seen, that's not the reality. A lot of the jobs that we need to do in order to make things just cannot be done by robots and machines. And those things that can be automated, things like sewing machines, if you've ever seen someone work at a sewing machine, it requires a human operator. So we're gonna need people in order to make stuff. And if we need people to make stuff, there's gonna be a next China. The reason why there's gonna be a next China is because labor in China is increasingly getting quite expensive. I'm gonna break down the 9 things that are required for a country to become the next China. A rich, powerful nation which makes physical products. The first thing you need is a willing government. The people in government need to be more about their country and patriotism than filling their own pockets. They need to have the right policies in place in order to make this manufacturing boom happen. I've tried to buy things in Mexico, and while there is some manufacturing there, it's all at a high level because the government just has horrible policies that make it really impossible for small and medium companies to export. Second thing that's required, you need to have willing people. The people need to want to work in manufacturing, or they need to not know better. One of the reasons why I'm not bullish on Indian and Filipino manufacturing is too many people over there speak English. If you speak English, you are able to see all the crazy things that happen on social media, and your talent gets pulled towards things like call centers, business process outsourcing, media, posting on social media. And if your talent is being pulled towards those things, it's not going into manufacturing. Let me give you a concrete example. If you're a young person in India or the Philippines and you speak English, you may not want to work at a factory operating a machine because your English ability allows you to sell your services to American or even European companies that want those services, right? So this pulls up the average wage in India and the Philippines and can sometimes make their manufacturing uncompetitive with other countries. You also need to have a culture that supports a culture of manufacturing. In Indonesia, you have Islam. Islam restricts the number of people who are going to get addicted to drugs, who are going to become alcoholics, which is a big problem in a lot of countries. Another thing is that if you don't speak English, again, you don't get exposed to some of that social media, which can be damaging. One of the things China has done, and some of these other smaller countries have done, is that they restrict what kind of social media you watch. You're not gonna want to work a sewing machine as a woman if you know that people get up on OnlyFans and can make millions of dollars a month, right? This is, it is what it is. 3, there can't be competition for the same labor. I talked about that earlier when it comes to English speaking in India and the Philippines, but it's also a major problem in Mexico. So the ideal place to be doing manufacturing in Mexico is the border, but wages there are actually quite expensive, not just because there's lots of demand for the labor at the border, but because all the cartels are there. Like, if you're a guy who wants to make some money and you're in northern Mexico, not only do you have to deal with the cartels, but the cartels are competing for your labor, right? If you have the choice, do you want to work in a factory or do you want to be basically moving drugs across the border? There can't be competition for the labor if you want to become a powerful manufacturing nation. Or you're going to need tons and tons and tons of people. China has a population of what, 1.4 billion people. your people in your country, they need to be densely packed. The way that factories work is you have one factory supplying a neighboring factory, which supplies a third factory, and then they get their raw materials from some other factory that's close by. This is one of the reasons why you end up with like a town that just like specializes in socks. You need people to be densely packed. You can't be like kind of like America where people are all spread out outside of a few cities. Countries like Indonesia, and this is gonna blow your mind, just the island of Java in Indonesia has more people than the entire country of Japan. It has 140 million people. It's like a strip of an island. And those people are more densely packed than Bangladesh. This kind of density, which also exists in Eastern China, is the type of thing that supports manufacturing powerhouse countries. 5, the local people need to be educated in things like mathematics, engineering, and stuff like that. Because in order for a country to really become a developed manufacturing nation, it's not sufficient for the people to just stay as workers. They need to be able to bubble up. In other words, they need to be able to get promoted. They have to become engineers. Someday they need to open their own factories. And the education in the country needs to support that. 6, so how exactly does that happen? The way that it happened in all the countries, mostly in Asia, who made this magic happen was by being taught by foreigners. So people in Germany, believe it or not, and people in America, whatever, they would go to China, they'd go to these different countries over in Asia, and they would use the inexpensive labor to make things, but they would teach the local people how to make stuff in the process of opening their factory. So if you want to be the next China, you need to be near the source of the people who know what they're doing. And yeah, there's some people in America, there's some people in Europe, but by and large, all the people who are doing manufacturing in this world, they're in Asia. So you can't really be too far from that. So I'm not sure that this is gonna happen in a place like Brazil or Argentina, which is on the other side of the world from where all the people who really know manufacturing, Japan, South Korea, China, Taiwan, are. 7, this is very simple. If you want to open a sewing factory in a place like Africa, you're not going to be able to get the fabrics you need to actually sew because Africa, by and large, doesn't really make fabrics. So you need the proximity to the places where these products are made, which is China, and to some extent the United States still has that going on. 8, you're going to need ports. Because in order to get those materials, they have to be able to come in and then they have to be able to go out. One of the most successful countries that kind of hit a rough spot in the world in Africa, it was actually Ethiopia, because they had a solid port that was like on the Red Sea, and then they built a train system which allowed them to get stuff in and out. Then they had a civil war and all that kind of turned to shit. So Ethiopia's not happening. This basically disqualifies Central Asia from being the next China. Sorry, Kazakhstan, sorry, Uzbekistan. It's not happening for you. Like, unless we get some sort of major technological innovation when it comes to moving goods over trains, these countries, which aren't even that populated to begin with, are not going to be major manufacturing powerhouse and exporters for the entire world because they just can't get their goods out of Asia. Rugs. Pretty cool. Number 9, the final ingredient necessary to become the next China. You need a trading hub. I'm in Singapore. Singapore is the new Hong Kong. Hong Kong used to be the major trading hub for China. That's where you went. It was like the pleasant place that you would go to buy all your stuff because you didn't want to go to China because it was unpleasant at the time. It was an undeveloped shithole. Singapore is that place for Southeast Asia. Which, drum roll please, brings me to my final point. Where is the next, what country is the next China? There is no next China. China will never happen again. 1.4, highly educated, extremely hardworking people coming online, not speaking English, focusing on manufacturing. That's not happening again. The closest thing that we will ever get to next China in our lives, if I don't get hit by this car, is not English speaking Southeast Asia. It's Vietnam, it's Cambodia, it's sort of maybe Laos, which is a small country, it's landlocked, it could sort of maybe work. It's not the Philippines because they speak English. It's not India because again, they speak English, and I'm not sure the government is really that into manufacturing. And there's so much competition for their labor in other ways, from business process outsourcing to media, to social media, to software. It's Vietnam, it's Indonesia, it's Malaysia, it's Thailand, it's Myanmar, it's Bangladesh. It's all the countries in that cluster because they're close to Asia, okay? And all the manufacturing brains right now is Asia. If you're a Japanese guy who had a factory in China and labor has just gotten too expensive to continue to operate your factory in China, you're not gonna take a plane from over all the way to Mexico. Like, it's just too foreign to someone from Japan. And so what these people have been doing and what they're gonna continue to do is they're gonna open their factories in non-English speaking Southeast Asia. That is the next China. I hope you liked my video. You can learn more about manufacturing in Asia and China by following me and checking out my other 2 videos. I've got a really good one on the development of China. And I got another really powerful one about the soul that's in physical products. And it's got some cool videos of particularly Indonesia, where I just was. Thank you. Bye.